Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for my top 10 comic books of the week. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is my top 10 comic books for the week. Not a spec list, just my 10 favorite comic books from this week. Books I would highly recommend. Let's get right into it. At number 10, Getting It Together. Number 1 from Image Comics. Getting It Together was a very delightful slice of life type book about young people in their 20s trying to kind of get their life together, try to figure things out. It's dealing with their friendships, their relationships, and all kinds of stuff in between. The drama, the humor, and the nuance of it. And I thought it did an absolutely fantastic job. It's written by Sina Grace and Omar Spahi with artwork by Jenny D. Fine as well as Sina Grace. The artwork may not be for everybody's taste, but I think it does a great job of capturing the tone of the story, the pacing, and of course the characters and their interactions and their emotions. The story is really, really well done. The dialogue is fire, and it really does remind me of my life, especially in my early to mid 20s when we're partying all the time. Everybody's got a cool social life. Everybody's trying to meet around and screw around and all kinds of stuff like that. I really like this book. I thought it did a great job of portraying real life human relationships and doing it in a very subtle and nuanced way, and I loved it. At number 9, We Only Find Them When They're Dead. Number 2 from Boom Studios. So We Only Find Them When They're Dead, number 1, set up a great concept and introduced the characters. In issue number 2, what I like about it so much is it takes those characters, fleshes them out a little bit, and then it defines the quest that this book is actually going to be about. So now we've got the concept, and now we've got the journey. And I'm very excited to see what's going to happen. It's got great kinetic and dynamic artwork from Simone DeMeo. However, this time, colored a little too darkly for me. Sometimes it's quite difficult to make out what's going on, who's what, and all this kind of stuff. If they could just brighten up the coloring a little bit, I think this would have been a little bit higher on the top 10. But I'm still liking the artwork aside from the dark coloring, and I'm really liking the story. I like getting to know the characters a little bit better. Al Ewing's doing a great job with a crazy cool cosmic concept, and then also kind of making it a little bit more relatable with those character interactions, and I loved it. Thought they did a great job for their sophomore issue. At number 8, Batman 100 from DC Comics. So James Tynion's kind of done the impossible here. He was brought on to temporarily write Batman until the 5G stuff happened, and so he was supposed to be writing the final Batman story, the final confrontation between the Batman and the Joker. And you can definitely tell when you start reading this, especially towards the beginning at the explosiveness of the Joker War, that it seems like it was set up to be a definitive endgame for these characters. But plans have changed. No more 5G. James Tynion's just really becoming a superstar writer. He's really tearing it up with his creator-owned work and with his work on Batman. So of course he's going to be on for a little bit longer, hopefully for a good long while. He's doing a great job. So what he did was he took this deliberate endgame and he's actually turned it into the launching springboard of what's to come in his run. So what usually most writers will usually end, let's say like Scott Snyder for instance, usually you save the Joker for big moments, maybe towards Act 2 of your run, maybe towards the completion of the final bits of it. But what Tynion's doing is he's setting up this giant crazy Joker War story to set up the duration of his run on Batman. And he does it very well. Joker War's been exciting, it's been fun, with the artwork by Jorge Jimenez and Toro Mori's coloring. Absolutely fantastic. This is some of the best artwork I've ever seen from Jimenez, and I've been a big fan of him ever since I really started noticing him over at Super Sun several years ago. I think Tynion does a great job with these characters. He does a great job with Gotham, and he set up something interesting. And I'm very excited to see what he's going to do. This is an extra-sized anniversary issue that really I could sink my teeth into. I liked it a lot. Lots of setup for 2021, and I'm excited. Tynion's run's just beginning. At number 7, American Ronin, number 1, from AWA, Upshot. Pete Milligan is back, and Pete Milligan's doing what Pete Milligan used to do back in the day. When he was working on Vertigo titles like Enigma and things like that, I just really shade the Changing Man. This kind of feels a little bit more like he's back into that level of writing. I think that some of his work over the last few years has been a little bit okay, but I really like this one. It's got a cool concept. It's basically about this hitman in a world so openly ruled by corporate interests, right? He's like this hitman who's like running around, and he's actually an empath. He can actually somehow absorb the DNA and the memories and emotions and feelings of his victims, and that's how he finds out exactly what it's going to take and what he should do to fulfill his mission. I really like this book. ACO, I don't know how you were supposed to pronounce that. The artist, though, fantastic. Great composition, intriguing, innovative layouts. This is a great book. I love the coloring. I love the starkness of those layouts. It really, really pops, and it's a really cool, nuanced story with a really interesting concept. Milligan and ACO back together for the first time. I don't know, but it's a good book and another debut from AWA that I thought was really enjoyable. At number 6, Norse Mythology, number 1 from Dark Horse Comics. Man, it sure is nice to be getting some Dark Horse comics back. Now, Neil Gaiman did a book called Norse Mythology, which is Neil Gaiman telling these whimsical stories from Norse mythology. Now, I haven't read the book, and so I was going to shy away from this adaptation, because usually the P. Craig Russell adaptations, they're cool and they're interesting, but they're not as good as the original material. But I love Norse mythology, and when I was like, whoa, Mike Mignola's on a story in here, and Jerry Ordway, along with P. Craig Russell, I definitely got to check this out, and I'm glad I did. A very whimsical nature to the story, great artwork. You got the masters, Ordway, Mignola, P. Craig Russell, fantastic stuff. Do a great job of capturing the absurdity of some of these old Norse tales, but I loved it. I thought the artistic interpretations of the characters were spot on. I had a lot of fun with this one. I love the variant cover by David Mack. I'm definitely in this for the long haul and definitely going to have to rush in to getting the actual book Norse Mythology and give it a read because Neil Gaiman's dope and P. Craig Russell knows how to adapt a Neil Gaiman story. At number 5, Firepower, number 4 from Image Comics. Robert Kirkman, Chris Samney, Matt Wilson, Russ Wooten, they've been killing it on this book, and I think this is one of the best issues yet since that initial graphic novel. You got a great balance here of real-life human elements and drama, as well as dynamic, fluid action. Chris Samney does such an amazing job of staging these action scenes. Matt Wilson does a great job of maintaining his own identity as a colorist, but shifting and forming his style to work with whatever artist he's working on. And Robert Kirkman, this is a really sleek, lean and concise and engineered script. Usually not something I'm so used to seeing from him. We usually have a whole lot more talking heads and very little action, but Firepower has got great martial arts action. It's got great human interaction and drama, and I'm just freaking loving this book, and I think this was one of the best issues yet. At number 4, The Dreaming, Waking Hours, number 3 from DC Black Label. You know, ever since they relaunched the Sandman universe stuff, it's kind of not really caught on. But I'm going to tell you what, these Dreaming series have been amazing. The Cy Spurrier one was fantastic. Now you got G. Willow Wilson writing some of her best scripts I've ever read from her on a comic book. Nick Robles, Matt Lopez on the artwork. The artwork is so great in this book, and I love it. It's got a great sense of a whimsical, magical nature to it that's very appropriate to Neil Gaiman's Sandman world. It's got very cool, dense, complex and organic artwork with great composition. I just freaking love this book so much. You got a little bit of Shakespearean stuff going on, and that's of course integral at times, and is very much rooted into what came before in Neil Gaiman's Sandman, and I really like that. I'm loving this book. I'm loving these characters. Ruin is a very interesting character. The main character, she's interesting. The whole gist of what's going on, that's incredibly intriguing and compelling, and I'm completely engaged in this book, and it blows me away every single time I read it. The Dreaming, Waking Hours is one of DC's best. At number 3, Lonely Receiver, number 2 from Aftershock. Lonely Receiver is weird, but it's also cerebral, challenging, and fan-frickin-tastic. I love this book. It's really weird, and it doesn't go too far out of its way to explain some of the weird things. The basic gist of it is this. At some point in this world, I guess in sometime in the future, you can have your phone, which looks weird and fleshy and kind of hairy at times. Your phone can actually make a companion for you, a lifelong companion, a soulmate, if you will, right? And what happens when all of a sudden your soulmate that you basically bought from a program from your phone company leaves you? So what it is a psychological sci-fi horror book about going through a breakup. And Zach Thompson, the writer, is holding nothing back here. It seems like a very personal story, and I think it works so well. This is about what can happen in your mind when you're sinking down the spiral of despair and hopelessness, and you're trying to question everything, like, what did I do this wrong? Maybe if I would have done this, how can I get her back? And all this kind of stuff. Really interesting. It really goes a little bit further into some of the psychological aspects in the second issue, but I thought it was amazing. Jen Hickman's artwork, oh my goodness, they are a superstar. This is fantastic work. Simon Bolin, you add him in. Fantastic book. I loved it. It was sensational and amazing, and like I said, it's complex, it's cerebral, it's weird, it's out there, but it hits such an emotionally resonant chord that I think anybody that's gone through a serious breakup at any point in their adult life can really relate to this and understand some of those thoughts and fears that start happening. And I just think that this was one of the best books of the year. Lonely Receiver, 2 issues in, is astounding me. And number 2, Coffin Bound. Number 7 from Image Comics. Coffin Bound is just a damned genius comic book. Just a genius comic book. Dan Waters, genius. Danny, the artist, genius. Brad Simpson, the colorist, genius. Aditya Bidikar, the letterer, genius. This book is amazing. It almost made the pick of the week. It was like, it could have been right there. It's a challenging read. It's really difficult sometimes to really understand and dissect all the rich themes that are going on. There's so much stuff in there about despair, about death, about depression and anxiety, and about life, about faith. Gets really deep, and now we're taking the level of innovation to the nth degree with issue number 7. Basically, the main character has these assassins after her, and they're all like personifications of abstract concepts of the universe and the cosmos, and I'm loving it. It's got the poetic nature of the Sandman with a raw, guttural, violent nature of a grindhouse film from the 70s. I freaking love it. And the innovation goes crazy. One of the assassins sent after her is this, like, there's 2 of them, and they kind of become one, and just, I can't really explain this book without spoiling too much for you. I'll just say this. This is one of the most challenging yet rewarding comic books out there. Coffin Bound is just a brilliant book. I love it. Like I said, it's got the poetic richness of a Sandman world with that in-your-face rawness of Grindhouse. I love this book. It hits hard and it doesn't hold anything back. Coffin Bound number 7, almost pick of the week. But number 1 goes to Decorum, number 5 from Image Comics. Not to take anything away from Lonely Receiver or Coffin Bound, but yet another brilliant comic book just filled with genius. Mike Huddleston does such an amazing job with the art here. You've never seen art like this, not only from Huddleston, just from almost anybody. His styles switch and change so fluidly, but it works and it fits with the tone and structure of the story. Speaking of structure, Jonathan Hickman does such a great job with the structure of this one, which could just easily be your typical Rocky training montage, but he does something really interesting with the structure to give the book have maximum effect. I love this book. It blows me away. There's nothing like it. It's a very simple story, but the way that it's told, the world built around it, it seems more complex than it actually is. This is a book that definitely rewards rereading, and I just think it may be the best book of the year. But it's got some stiff competition. Coffin Bound, Lonely Receiver. What a fantastic week for indie comic books. Some amazing, innovative, brilliant type stuff out this week. But to me, Decorum, number 1. I mean, Coffin Bound's like right there. They could really be co-picks of the week. And Lonely Receiver just a little bit behind them. But I love Decorum. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And if you are finding it a bit confusing, maybe a bit too challenging, just read it again. Read it all in one sitting. I think you'll really be able to sink your teeth into it a little bit more. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. That's my top 10 of the week. What are your favorite comic books of the week? Your top 1, 3, 5, 10, 20. Who cares? Let us know what you're reading and what we should be reading in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.